So our topic for today is all about creating your own classes. So at the end of this chapter, the student should be able to create their own classes, declare attributes and methods for their classes, use the this reference to access the instance data, create and call overload methods, import and create packages, use the access modifier to control access to class members. Let's define first our own classes. So there are things that you will see in defining syntax in creating your own class. The first thing we will see is the asterisk symbol, which means that there may be zero or more occurrences of the line where it was applied. So we have also description, which indicates that you have to substitute an actual value for this part. Pag may nakita kayong enclosed with greater than or less than, it is a kind of description. And we have also the square brackets, enclosed with square bracket, which indicates that it is this is part is optional. How do we define our own classes? We define our own class, so we write modifier, which is the access modifier, which may be combined with other types of modifier. And we have also the class keyword plus the name of the class. So under this class declaration, we have parts to be declared. Number one is we have attribute declaration. Number two is the constructor declaration. And number three is the method declaration. Example of class is, let's say, public class student record. So the public here, again, is an access modifier, which means the class is accessible to other classes outside the package. And then we have also the class keyword, which is used to create a class in Java. And we have also the student record, which is a unique identifier that describes our class. Then, as guidelines, think of an appropriate name for your class. Don't just call your class as XYZ or any random names you can think of. So class name should start with capital letter, and the file name of your class should have the same name as your public class name. Then, how do we declare attributes? So in declaring an attributes, this is just like declaring a variable in an ordinary Java program. The only difference is that we add the modifier. Okay? Meron lang siyang modifier sa pag-declare natin. How do we declare? So we have modifier, we have type. It can be double, integer, character, or a string. Then we have also the variable name for the specific type. Okay? Then aside from that, we can also use the some keyword such as static, final, na mga keyword, which is also for the identifying the variable. Okay, next is we have the instance variables. What are these instance variables? So if we declared already the variable or the data type for the data type, it is considered to be an instance variable. So sabi ko nga kanina that private access modifier means that these variables are only accessible within the class. So other objects cannot access these variables directly. So hindi siya pwede ma-access because of the modifier na private. Then declare all your instance variables on top of the class declaration. Then declare one variable for each line. Then instance variables, like any other variable, should start with small letter. So as we agreed with what we discussed before about the declaration of a variable starting from a small letter and capital letter if we use class. Then use an appropriate data type for each variable you declare. Then declare instance variables as private so that only class methods can access them directly. So we have also here a static variables. So when we say static variables, so we use the static to indicate that variable is static variable. Okay, when we say static, it can be directly called by the main object without instantiating. Okay, so later on, we will try on that. Static. How do we declare methods naman? In declaring methods, again, we have also modifier. So this is also the way that functions will be declared or modifier will be declared. So modifier, then return type. It can be string, double, integer, character, boolean. So it depends upon the return of the method. Then we have also the method name and the parameter, which is also an optional value for the parameter. Ang parameter is an optional. So we have two types of methods. Meron tayong dalawang klaseng method. Meron tayong accessor methods at saka meron din tayong mutator method. Unahin natin si accessor method. Si accessor is used to read values from our class variables, instance or static. And it is usually written as, we will now use the get prefix. So every accessor method, don't forget to add the get prefix. Using the get prefix is used to identify for a certain variable or instance variable na ginagamit. So at least we can easily identify that these are accessor method. So with the use of the get prefix. The get prefix function is that if we have a class declaration, the use of this get is it gets the value of a certain variable in the class going outside to the class. Kumbaga, siya yung tagakuha ng mga value sa loob mismo ng class na may yung mga variable na meron ng value, siya mismo yung kumukuha, then ilinalabas niya mismo sa class papunta doon sa main program na tumatawag sa kanya. So yan ang trabaho ni get variable ay ni get prefix or ni accessor method. So yan ang trabaho niya. Like for example, meron tayo ditong dineclare na variable name which is a string. Then we have also the string get name which returns the variable name. So the public there is still the modifier. Then we have the return type which is a string. And we have the get name which is the name of the method. And the open and the close parentheses are the way or the pathway wherein parameters are placed. So, yung sinasabi ko kanina na si get ay tagalabas ng value. Kasi halimbawa si name, meron tong value. Let's say mayroon siyang value na XYZ. So, what will happen is if this method is being called outside the main, it is being called by the main program. So what will happen is it will return the value for name. Whatever is the value of name, i-return niya yon. Okay, that's for accessor method. Then we have also another example, a get average example, which is this can be also a method wherein you can calculate computations, expressions, or mathematical operations in a certain variable. I am in a certain method. Okay, so yan. Then the next one is we have also the mutator method, which is used to write or change values of our class variables, can be instance or static. And it is usually written as, ito naman ang gagamitin natin na prefix ay set. Set means we are getting input outside the class, papunta doon mismo sa loob ng class. Okay, so tingnan natin. Kung yung kanina si get, ang ginagawa niya, siya yung tagatapon palabas ng mga data na nandoon na sa class mismo. Ito naman si set, ang ginagawa niya naman, siya naman yung tagakuha ng data galing sa labas, papasok sa class. So, kumbaga, there is one way of yung exit at saka yung entrance. One way lang. Hindi yung pwede mag-output pwede mag-input si get, pwede naman mag-output si set. Halimbawa, ganon. In two way. Hindi, pwede. Isa lang. Kung sino lang yung tagalabas, sino lang yung taga-kuha ng input, papasok sa isang class. So we have also multiple return statements, which you can have multiple return statements for a method as long as they are not on the same block. So you can also use constants to return value instead of variable. So pwede tayo mag-return ng value, maglagay ng multiple returns in one method as long as that ang i-return niya lang ay isa. So it depends upon the, the expression or the condition kung sino yung return na gagamitin. So hindi sila pwedeng magsabay or tatlo man lang silang i-return, hindi. Isa lang talaga yung i-return. Okay, then we have also the static. So in public class declaration, we can declare static integer to get, let's say, get student count. So ibig sabihin, static means that the method is static and should be called by typing only the class name. Ito, student record plus the method name which is the get student count. So directly we can already call without instantiating. So yung import magpapabaga tayo like student record, let's say SD is equal to new student record. So which is what way of parang ginawa natin is nag-instantiate tayo ng object, saka lang natin itatawagin yung mga method niya. Pero but because of the static, kahit hindi na yon, as long as that the class name is present, pwede natin siya tawagin. So later on, we will have an example on that. And we have also coding guidelines, which is method name should start with small letter. So alam na natin yan. And method names also should be verbs and always provide documentation before the declaration of the method, which you can use the Java doc style for this. So it means na once we create a class, we could use some special Java document comments in order for us, once we create these Java document comments and we generate this documentation file, so lahat ng nandoon sa mga class na connected sa mga class natin, i-generate niya yon na meron para tayong help file because of the Java document comment. Okay? So we have here source code for class student record. Ang gagawin natin is, iisa-isay natin yan na para mas maintindihan nyo kung paano siya ginagawa. Paano ba yung nangyayari? What would be the step in creating your own class? Okay? So, before we discuss about the disreference, kasi ito, baka malito kayo. So, we need first example of how do we create a class in Java. Okay? So, punta tayo sa Notepad. So, the first thing we will do is to declare the class mismo. We have public class and student record. Meron tayong student record, then yung class natin. And we have steps to be followed or steps to or a guide wherein how do we declare some variables methods smoothly during this class declaration using the declaration. So the first thing we will do is we look for the attribute. So attribute declaration muna tayo. Okay? The next step is the constructor declaration, and the next step is the method declaration. So under the method declaration, we have two types. Number one is we have the accessor and the mutator. So unahin muna natin si mutator bago tayo kay accessor. So unahin natin si mutator. Yan, ito na yung guide natin, magiging guide natin on how to create the classes for the attribute. So unahin natin si attribute. So once we use the attribute declaration, ibig sabihin nito is we are declaring or para tayong nag-a-assign ng mga variables. Pero we have to identify. Hindi tayo pwede mag-declare ng variable na let's say kung ang data type natin na is string, ang gagawin natin in just one line. So halimbawa in just one line, nandoon na yung declaration natin. Let's say name, address, civil status, and so on and so forth. Hindi pwede. Unlike with on the natural declaration in the main program ng Java, we could do that in just one line. Pero dito hindi pwede. We will declare it one by one. So halimbawa, simula tayo kay name, which is we use private kasi parang accessible lang yung variable natin is within the class. So private, let's say string name. Ayan, unahin natin si name, then sunod natin si address, then we follow the integer ages. So we have private int ages. Ito yan yung mga unang information na kailangan natin. And we follow also the inputs from the math grade, science grade, and English grade. So private pa rin sila. Then integer. So we have English grade. Then we declare also private, another int for math grade. And then next is we have private int again, then science grade. Okay? So yan. And syempre, ang kailangan pa rin natin is the average. So let's just add some method for the computation. So lagay tayo ng private, double, then lagay natin yung average. Okay? So yan yung attribute declaration. This is an example of the attribute of the declared attributes in a class declaration. Okay, next is we have the constructor. So let's have also an example of a constructor. So sabi baga, ang constructor is just the same name as the class name. Lagay tayo ng student record. Student record, kaya siya ng pangalan ng class name natin. And if we going to display something, display lang tayo ng something, any message. So to prove that this constructor is working. So diba yan, lang tayo na I'm in constructor. Yan, gawan lang tayo niyan. So gawa pa tayo ng isang constructor. So tawag dito is overloading constructor na siya. Ibig sabihin they have the same constructor name but they should have different parameter. So let's say int x, lagay lang tayo ng int x. And yung message natin, dagdagan natin dito na I'm in constructor with parameter para at least maintindihan nyo kung ano yung ginagawa ni constructor. Okay. So meron tayong dalawang declaration ng constructor. This is just an example. Then we proceed now to the method declaration. So under method declaration, unahin muna natin si mutator. Okay. So under mutator, ang gagawin natin is iisa-isay natin itong attribute declaration. So what are the variable here or the attribute here that can be used for reading? Ibig sabihin, gagamitin natin to read the file. So, paano natin siya babasahin? Halimbawa, since si mutator is a void, okay, hindi siya magre-return ng value. Kung gagawin natin, we will use public, then void, set name. Unahin natin si name para di tayo malito. So we have set name and kailangan niya ng parameter kasi void siya. Hindi naman siya magre-return ng value. So let's say for example, we use string temp. And we assign the variable temp to variable name. So yan, meron tayong declaration. So ibig sabihin yan, ito si name, kung ano man yung papasok na data dito kay temp, ibibigay niya yun kay name. So that will do also for the rest of the declaration. So copy na lang natin. Copy natin to. Then we have to paste. Then set, ano yung sunod? We have address. We have address. Then kita na lang natin ito ng address. Then next we have ages. So ages ang sunod. Then we use also the variable ages. Ano yung sunod? Next we have the English grade, math grade, at saka science grade. Yan yung sunod na kukuha ng input. So set English grade. We have English grade. And dito, English graded. Okay, copy natin to kasi this will also do to the rest of the subjects. Ito na natin to. English, gawin na natin siyang math. Okay, ito din, gawin na natin siyang math. Okay, isa na lang. We set English, so we have science. And last, yan. Nakompleto na natin yung method declaration out of the declared attributes. So, kung magtatanong kayo, bakit hindi natin ginawa ng yung average ng mutator? Kasi si average, siya na mismo yung magko-compute based on the declared or based on the input from English, math, and science. Siya na yung bahala. So, no need to declare it as mutator. Okay, next is punta naman tayo kay accessor. So, si accessor naman, ang ginagawa niya ay nagre-return siya ng value. Let's say for example, unahin natin si name, we have public string si name. Ang return value niya ay string, then with the use of the get prefix, get and name. And then i-return lang natin yung value ng name. So, ang mangyayari nito, kung si set nagbasa na siya ng input galing doon sa main program, so definitely meron ng value to sa name. So kung meron na tong value si name, if ever na gusto i-output yung value, it can return pabalik. Okay? So pwede na siya i-return pabalik doon sa main program kung tinatawag niya siya. Okay? This will do also to the rest of the declaration ng method. So nauna natin si get name, siyempre sunod natin si address and address dito. Then next is we have ages. So next is we have ages. Get ages, then dito is ages also. Then next we have yung sunod. Sa subjects na tayo. So we have get English. Kailangan pa ba natin yung get English? Siyempre, kasi kung gusto natin i-display yung mga in-input na grade, so verify, dagdagan natin. So get English grade. So i-return niya din yung English grade. Yan, meron na tayong English grade. Then we just copy. So copy na lang natin to for the rest of the 3 subjects, the remaining 2 subjects. So yung pangalawa, we have math. Yung pangatlo, we have, pangalawa pa rin, math. And we have also the last one, which is science. Then the last part, we have science. And the return variable is science grade. Okay, so we are done with the rest. Pero mayroon pa tayong isang na makakalimutan, which is the average. How do we do this average? So let's make it simple. Let's say public. We have public. Since the declared variable is double, I mean data type is double. So public double, get average. Okay, so yan. And then declare tayo ng integer. Let's say total equal to 0. So example lang to. So total is equal to English grade plus math grade plus science grade. Okay? And the average is equal to total divided by 3 na lang natin para mas madali. Then, ang i-return niya ay average. So, return average. Yan na yung complete class declaration natin ng student record. Okay? So, i-save natin siya. Yan, kompleto na tayo. So, na-identify natin yung attribute. We also create an example of constructor. Then, we have also the declaration of the mutator. Then, we have also the declared accessor method. And plus, the accessor methods for the get average, which is also for the computation, calculations, expression, etc. Para at least in our main program, wala na tayo masyadong declaration doon. All we have to do in our main program is that we call functions from data, so that you will already feel the real world of object-oriented programming. Tingnan natin, gawa tayo ng simple program. So out of the class student record, so gawa tayo ng main program. So we have public as we have student record main. So yan yung unahin natin. Then we declare also we have public static void. Okay, so meron tayong main program. So first is how do we use the class? So pag gumawa kayo ng class, i-save nyo lang siya sa same directory. Kasi pag linagay nyo siya sa ibang directory, ang nangyayari dyan is, maghahanap, pag nag-compile tayo dito kay student record, main, pag nag-compile siya, hahanapin niya kung asan itong class na student record. So minsan, we have to set class path. So iba yung set path natin sa class path. So as much as possible is, lagay muna natin siya sa isang directory. Okay? So kung saan yung working directory natin, i-save lang natin siya in just one directory. Okay? So halimbawa, i-call natin si student record, studrec equal to new student record. Okay? So, ito na yung tinatawag na constructor dito. Pag ganito ang dineclare natin, itong code na to, mayroon na tong output. Pag kinumpile na nito, mayroon na tong output. Ano yung magiging output niya? Based dito sa constructor, kasi ito yung constructor na parang nalilink niya. So, based dito sa constructor na student record, ang ipiprint niya dito, meron tayong dalawang constructor, syempre ito. Kasi wala naman siyang parameter. So automatic kasi si Java ang naghahanap kung paano niya kung sino yung pipiliin niyang constructor na i-execute. Halimbawa, ito. So, since in our declaration sa main program, wala naman siyang parameter, syempre, ang i-display niya is I'm in a constructor. Now, if we add a parameter here, let's say naglagay tayo ng value na 10, so automatic, the Java will select the specific value or specific constructor na ito na yung i-display niya. Ito, ignored niya na yan. Hindi niya na yan i-display. This will be ignored. Ito na yung output niya. Okay? So, yan. That is the work of the object-oriented. So, biro nyo, ito lang yung line-clear natin na line na to, pero meron na siyang possible output. Okay, next. If we are going to display, get muna tayo ng input. So, let's say studrect dot set, magsiset tayo ng name. Okay, so set tayo ng name. Halimbawa, ito yung meron tayong parameter na ipapadaan. Let's say Juan de la Cruz. Yan, ang una nating, so ibig sabihin, papasok na siya sa student record. So based on the set name, dito siya papasok. Then si Juan de la Cruz, nandito na siya sa temp. I-assign siya kay name. So si name ngayon, meron na siyang value na Juan de la Cruz. So, i-display natin yung output niya. So if we are going to display the output, ganito yung gagawin natin. Okay, gamit tayo ng system.out, println, bigyan natin ng message. So, let's say the name is, then let's concat it with the use of studrect at get name. Yan. So in this type of declaration or coding, so tapos na tayo ng ma-display niya na yung value ni name. Kung ano yung in-input natin, kaya na i-display yan. So we will test on this example. Ito na, nandito na tayo sa command line or command prompt. So we will go to my working directory, is my Java programs, and tingnan natin yung student record. Meron tayong dalawang file, studentrecord.java and studentrecord.main. So ang kailangan lang natin i-compile ay yung student record main. Isa lang yung kailangan natin i-compile. Don't worry about the student record or the class name kasi once we compile student record main.java, automatic, it will generate a bytecode, both student record and student record main. Kakaroon na sila ng bytecode. So let's try. Say Java C, student record main. Let's Java. Meron tayong error. Check ko lang muna ha. Magkaroon tayo ng error. If wala ng error, clear natin yung mga errors na yan. So compile ulit. No error. So error natin. Okay, so yan. Tingnan nyo yung lumabas. I'm in constructor with parameter. Kasi laglagay tayo ng value doon sa constructor niya na 10 and the name is Juan de la Cruz. So ganito. So kanina yung error is ito pala. Hindi ko nagkaparalitan. Lahat yan string. Yan ang mga integer na yan. Lahat yan naka-string. So ang ginawa ko siyang integer. Error kanina. So balik tayo dito. So we go back here in our code. So display na natin ito. Kinuha natin yung display niya and also including the name plus the constructor. So ito may lagay kasing 10 kaya automatic ang display niya is yung may width parameter. Pero pag ang ginamit natin ay inalis ko tong 10, so automatic the parameter that will be used is ito, yung constructor na ito. Kasi inalis natin yung parameter. Siyempre, itong student record na constructor, walang parameter. So, yan ang gagamitin niya. Automatic siya. Ito talaga ang gagamitin niya. Hindi siya, si Java kasi siya na yung pumipili. Kahit madami ka pang constructor, meron ka dyan na 10. As long as it matches with the specific parameter or no parameter, so yan ang i-execute. Yan ang tinatawag na overloading constructor. So, ibig sabihin, when we talk about overloading, pare-parehas yung pangalan nila. Hindi sila nagkakaroon ng error. Why? Basta dapat magkaiba yung mga parameter nila. Kahit meron kang dalawang constructor na parehas yung parameter, I mean, yes, the count of the parameter is parehas sila tig-isang parameter. As long as na yung isa is integer, yung isa naman ay string. Pwede yun. Acceptable yun. Okay? So, yan. Let's go back now to our main. Ano pa yung gusto natin? So, gusto natin makita yung computations ng ng English grade. Okay, try natin. So, we will use studrect dot set. Ngayon, set. Unahin natin si English. So, English grade. Then, copy na lang natin to kasi tatlo man lang yun eh. So, meron tayong English grade, meron din tayong math, meron tayong science grade. We have science grade. So, ang gagawin lang natin, we have to input here, let's say 90, 89, 95. So, yan yung mga grades niya. And kung gusto mo i-output na lang natin yung average niya, pwede na, diretso. So, let's say the average is 10 to direct, so we will get the average. That's it. Pwede natin siya i-display. Meron na siyang computations ng average. Save natin. So, compile ulit and run. Ayo, tama. Lumabas pala ito yung average which is 91.0 and I'm in constructor kasi inalis natin yung variable value na 10. Let's say ngayon magtatanong kayo eh. Can we still use the buffered reader, the scanner, the J-option pin, and other classes that are used for input? Definitely yes, we could still use that. Okay, so ang sinasabi ko kanina is that we can use also a scanner. So we can use import java.util scanner and we declare also scanner sc, new scanner system.in. Then gawa tayo ng student rec which is sc. At di ba yung pagkuha natin ng input sa scanner is we use the sc, the next int. We use next line, next double, next float, so on. So dito, ang gagawin natin is, so to read is we use the next int. Next int tayo. Then the value na i-enter nyo will be from English grade. Then student rec from set English grade na mutator. So dito. So from set English grade na mutator, eto. Okay? So papasok dito yung grade, then from temp i-assign niya kay English grade, papunta dito kay attribute na English grade. Yan, ito na. So that will do also for the rest of the subject. Okay? So yan. Halimbawa, ito si math, gumamit din tayo ng sc.nextInt. Si science grade, parehas din. Yung output niya will be the same na siya. So yung ito, student rec, get average pa din. Wala na tayong babag. Pero kung gusto natin to make sure that what we input will be displayed. Gawa tayo ng isang input, the message using the system.out. So i-display lang natin yung lahat ng input natin for the English, math and science na grade. So let's say the input are let's say studrec, let's set English grade. So let's say English. And so let's concatenate again. So we use also math. Then studrec that math. Then the last one is the science. As for concat. Then studrec. Let's set create this create this statement just to verify na yung in-input natin ay pumasok dito sa class mismo, dito sa class na yan. So, nag-set tayo and we use also the get. So ito yung magdi-display palabas doon sa main program natin. So as you observe, wala tayong ginamit na anumang variables dito except for the scanner. But the rest, yung mga input, wala. Nandito na lahat kay student record. Ganito na yung gagawin natin kasi naka-object oriented na tayo eh. So kung gusto ko i-run, try natin siya, file. Meron naman tayong error. So the error, student rec set math grade. Method set math grade in class rec cannot be applied. Check mo lang. Papalitan natin yung mga nakaset ng get. Okay? Ayan. Check tayo dito. Ang ginawa ko, nakaset kasi to, titingnan nyo nakaset, dapat pala get yan. So ginawa ko na yan na get. So yan, wala na siyang error. Palitan natin. Compile natin para walang error. Okay, so yan. Then we run. Enter for English grade, let's say 90. Then enter math, 7. Enter science grade, let's say 89. So the name is Juan de la Cruz. The input are English 90, maths 97, science 89, and the average is 92 point. Ito yung class natin na ginawa. So pwede na kayo gumawa ng sarili nyong class based on this instruction.